Right, so welcome back to the studio, and my name is Urs Recher. I have the pleasure to make a very fast photograph today. A week ago we talked about the Scoro Power Pack and all the feature it offers, all the secrets it has, and today we are going to implement some of these features in a high-speed photograph. I'm going to smash a couple of glasses with water. We talk again about color temperature, how the flash duration influences color temperature, and so on. And first of all, for those that are joining us now, I would like to apologize for last week. We really had some big troubles with the microphone, so we are working with new devices today. So I hope that you can understand me somewhat better and that it's more easy to listen to me. Okay, for those probably know that this is an entire series of webinars. It's always about the product insight 1 week, and the week after it's implementation of this knowledge in a live shoot. So like now, like a week ago, we checked out the features of the Scoro, and today we are going to implement this. After this session, we have a 2 weeks break, and then we continue after a short, after this 2 weeks break here with more product insights. I would like to quickly mention questions. You can ask questions today, but we would prefer if, first of all, these questions would be asked in English, if they would be on the topic, and about not about the competitor products. Okay, so basically just about the broncolor stuff and especially about high-speed shooting. Right, I will interrupt the session once in a while to check the screen, what questions are coming through to me. I have 2 colleagues that take care of this. And so let's say it should maybe take an hour or so, and twice I will interrupt the session to answer these questions. If you have any questions that are not answered today, or that have a completely different topic, well, still about lighting, but a different topic than today, you can join me on Friday afternoon, 2 p.m. Swiss time. There I will be back in the studio and answer all your questions about studio lighting. Right, so let me go on setting up the lights. What we do first, we take care on the light, obviously, that actually the light shapes my glasses or my glass nicely, that later on, if we go for this high-speed shot, that we do not only have a frozen shot, a sharp shot, but as well a good-looking shot. If glass is already there, and as I'm shooting a transparent object, it makes, of course, a lot of sense that I work with the light from behind, right? So what I have so far is an acrylic board here. It's about 1 square meter, and it's just behind the glass, so just 3 centimeters difference or distance. So I put it as close as possible, and I'll shoot it right away. It doesn't make sense yet to shoot because in the end, of course, I will fill the glasses with water. And if you set up the light, you have to shoot actually the object as you're going to shoot it at the end. So it's important that the water is already in. Otherwise, sorry, I have to still struggling with this sound thing. Nach hinten. Okay, like this. Okay, good. So I need water in the glass. Let me check. Okay, let's hope this works better. And now I'm going to share the screen with you. Right. Okay, and you see my focus capture software. You will see always here on the right side, you will see the settings on the camera. So I'm working at ISO 100. The time right now is a 125th of a second. Single exposure, and the aperture is 22. This might surprise a little bit. I'm closing the aperture quite a lot. It's not the problem is not the depth of field. The problem is that later on I will have a longer exposure time or a longer shutter speed. I have to say a longer shutter speed on the camera, and I don't want that my lights in the studio have influence on the photograph, but at the same time I would like to let you see what I'm doing. So that's why with a rather closed aperture here, I try to limit the amount of light hitting my sensor. Right, okay, so what we see is not a lot. It's a transparent object, so it's quite boring what I have right now. Sorry, what was? Okay. Sorry, I have to take off the mic quickly and readjust it. Okay, sorry for that. We tried it 100 times before. All right, good. Sorry for that. We are learning and learning and learning. Okay, good. So I'm going to unshare the screen now again. So it's very boring. Yeah? So there are actually no contours left and right. It's almost the glass kind of disappears to the background. The background already reflects a little bit in the glass. So that's not what we want. And now I'm going to unshare the screen that you can see the next movement of the light. It doesn't really make sense to move the softbox, right? Because that's the light shaper. So I backlight the acrylic plate, and now I have to take this further away. Something like this. Depends, the distance to the glass depends on the size of your acrylic. But now through the glass, I will shoot as well some of the unilluminated areas left and right of the glass. So what I do expect is that we get tiny black contours on both sides. At the same time, I would like to have it more or less in the middle. It's a little bit too much on the left. So I put it a little bit more to the right. And I'm going to share the screen again with you before I expose again. All right, so everything the same, but my acrylic is further in the background. Exactly. And now we already see these contours, and that's the guarantee. Now let me explain this again. Okay, so that's a guarantee that what I see through the glass is actually the entire acrylic. When I'm very close to the glass, this means that through the glass I only see, like, I don't know, 20, 25 centimeters of my acrylic. And it will be very, very tricky to adjust the gradation on these few centimeters. Now I have 1 meter or even more than 1 meter to create a gradation that's later on visible through my glass. So that's why in the first step, I take the acrylic back far enough that I see tiny dark contours on both sides. And this means, first of all, that I have a nice separation. I have black contours on both sides in front of a bright background. So I have a nice separation that shows the shape nicely. And I have now the entire surface to create a gradation. And with this gradation, I will shape my glass. So far, I backlit my acrylic in a very boring way with just a softbox from behind. And now I'm going to create a light that actually shapes the light more nicely. It's round, but it's as well, it's like a ball. It's not only like a bottle, but it's really like a ball. So I would like to have a concentrical, not a linear gradation, but a concentrical gradation. And especially on small objects, the best light shaper to do this is just a bare bulb. So no light shaper. This one is over here. Right, okay. So what I'm going to use there is just a bare bulb. It's a pulsar G, but the Unilight will do the job as well. And I'm using a matte protecting glass. Why the matte protecting glass? With a clear protecting glass, it might be that you have some strange internal reflections, that this concentric gradation is not 100% even, shows some strange patterns. And with the matte protecting glass, of course, I have a very even light source, and with this, I get a perfect concentric gradation. I put this behind the acrylic. I try to have it centered behind the glass. And for a moment, I switch this one off, so the softbox goes off. And I plug in my second light. All right, so here we go. Good. Now it's very, I don't know if you can see it on the projection. I will show it for sure later on with the shooting. The distance is very essential. I can put it very, very close, and then I have an extremely small point, or when I put it further away, it doesn't really bring a lot. Let me show you what this does. So now it's quite far away. So this means that there's not really a big difference to the softbox, right? Okay, it's a little darker, a little bit, shows a little bit of a gradation, but it's not really what I want. And then the other extreme would be that I put it all against the acrylic. If I do this, of course, I have to reduce the power a little bit. I take it 2 steps down, shoot this again. And now that's the other extreme. Okay, now the bare bulb is actually touching the acrylic, but you see how precise now I can adjust the gradation. So I just go a little bit further away again. Okay, something like this. Okay, why not? Okay, good. And yeah, actually, that's not too bad. Yeah, it's a little dark. I'm going to read now here on the right lower part of the picture. You can see the RGB values. So I'm a red, green, blue. They're all far below 200. So this means if I would like to have a bright picture or a clear picture in the end, I can definitely go somewhat brighter. This is the numbers are about the 8-bit file, so they go from 0 to 255. And I can certainly have the lights on a 240. So let's say I go one f-stop up. That's, by the way, I get a lot of questions how I meter the light. Also, let's say if I meter the light and how I meter the light. And I do meter the light, but always like this. I always meter the light actually on the file itself, because this would be very, very tricky. If I meter the light that's coming from the acrylic plate, this would probably give me an f-stop, I don't know, 5.6, so very, very low. But as I'm shooting straight into the light, I can easily close down to 22. So I rather analyze the final photograph, either in a capturing software or in Photoshop, but I do not use standard normal light meters too much anymore, actually. Okay, so this one looks quite okay. The glass is slightly off center. I'm aware of this because I will have a second glass that's a little bit more on the right of this one. So I'm happy with this. The gradation, this light point could be slightly a little bit higher. So it just went up with the light a tiny little bit, exactly, that it's nicely behind this light. Okay, so let me unshare the screens quickly again. Now, unfortunately, you can't see it because it's hidden behind there, but the distance is like this. Okay, so we have maybe some 15, 20 centimeters from the bare bulb to the glass. But this is not something you have, let's say, to write down, because this depends so much on the glass, on the acrylic, on the focal length even. So this is really just about trying out. If you go closer, then the gradation becomes much harsher, much faster. If you go further away, then more and more and more we get closer to the light characteristics of the softbox. But what you can see as well before is that the corners are very, very dark. And I would like that we have a gradation, but at the same time, I would like that these gradations don't fade into black, but fade into gray. And that's why I turn on the softbox now again. It would be very, very tricky to have the perfect gradation from the bare bulb in order to have a nicely shaped glass like I have it now, and that the gradation fades only into gray, but not into black. So it's much easier to actually take care on the shape of the glass with the bare bulb and then add as a kind of a fill-in light the softbox from behind to limit or to define the darkest part of the photograph, to limit the contrast in the end. For this, it's important that we have a rather large softbox, that the light can travel around my main light. The main light is the bare bulb, so the softbox light, the fill-in light, can travel around the bare bulb without creating a disturbing shadow. Right, okay, so I switch it on again, the softbox, but of course not as a main light as before, so that's why I take it down, let's say 3 stops. Okay, because it just should add a little bit of light into the corners. So I'm going to let you see what I'm doing. So that's what we have so far. Okay, and now I'm taking care on these dark areas here on the right. So I'm shooting both lights together. And this looks like this. Okay, and now it actually does not influence the lights. This would be actually it's quite difficult to explain this. But if you have a lot of light, like in the hotspot, and you add a little bit of light, now I have 3 f-stops less. So this light does not influence, also the softbox does not influence the highlights, does not influence the brightest part here in the center of the glass, but it has a big influence on the dark corners. Okay, because if you have a lot of light and you add a little bit of light, nothing happens in the end. Okay, but if you have no light, like in the corners, and we add a little bit of light, of course, then immediately we see this light. Okay, so, and if I want, I can now very simply give it half a stop more, then it looks like this. Just a little bit flatter, or I can go again, let's say half a stop even lower. Then we would have a higher contrast. That's really 100% up to your personal taste. So the way I had it at the beginning looked actually quite okay to me. By the way, the power pack is quite far away from you now, but I took a picture of the power pack and all the settings. I'm going to show this to you at the end of the demonstration. You will have all the readings and the settings of my power pack. So as I did add some lights, it makes sense that I have another quick look here at the exposure. And you see that I'm working at 237, 227, 222, which means we are, I didn't take care on the gray balance yet. And RGB, all the 3 channels are below 240. That's fine. I can live with this, but I make a gray balance quickly. And exactly, do like this. Now I have 171, so 171, 171. So after the gray balance, I can go a little brighter again. Yep. Right, something like this. Okay, good. I would like to set up one more light. For this, I would like to let you see what I'm going to do in the studio. So we have main light, bare bulb, fill-in light, softbox. This is a 90 by 120, by the way. And, well, the object is transparent, but of course it's as well highly reflective. So I want that we have as well some reflections, not only transparent light, but as well some reflections. That's why I'm going to add here a strip light shaped softbox. It's on a very low stand. The glass is all the way back on the table. What I see a lot, let's say during workshops and so on, that the photographers put the glass here on the table, and then it's very tricky to get reflections down here. So you can, of course, from the middle to all the way up, you can still create reflections, but on the lower area of the glass, of course, the table would reflect. Okay, so that's why I put the glass all the way in the back. Right, and almost a little bit below, something like this. Huh? Okay, good. So this is the third light. I angle it not like this, not straight onto the set, because otherwise, like this, I would have reflections again, or it would hit my acrylic, and it would destroy my gradation. So that's why now the light goes more to the camera, more something like this, that it's not hitting my acrylic. So last light. Okay, let's try. Switching to screen sharing. Yep, all right. So there we go, and the last light. Okay, good. So that's what I have here. So it's just these tiny reflections here. This is just a reflection on the glass. It's a little darker. On this side, I have, actually this light is traveling through the glass, so that's why I have in here, I have a total reflection, so that's why this one is even brighter, even when it looks like further away. This is absolutely enough for me. This will, anyway, the glass will be broken at the final exposure, so I don't really care if there are some tiny unevenness when it's not completely even. So for me, this is absolutely fine like that. But what I do not like is that it's here in the photograph. And there's something strange happening here as well. There's like this strange white something here, which I don't really know what it is. But it came with the last light. So let's switch the first two lights off quickly, shoot it again. So that's now the light, only the light from the softbox. Okay, and here I still see this line here. Okay, so most probably it's the back of my table. Not sure about that. Yes, must be. Okay, so it's the back of the table, which is a white line. And of course, this white line receives a lot of light from this softbox hitting there. Then it goes to the background. And as my acrylic is shiny, I can see this line here, unfortunately. So what I need is a black paper. And some scissors or a knife, some tape. All right. Okay, just a little piece of black paper to cover this, the white back of the table. Okay, so this one goes here. Right. And the other problem is that this light was actually in the picture, so I pull it out a little bit. Right. And I'm going to check if this solves the problems we have. Okay, so this was the last shot here. No, let's go to this one. I delete this one, that we can see the direct change. So again, I'm focusing on this area. So this unwanted reflection here, you see it as well on the total, on the full picture, so that this kind of disturbing reflection here. Shoot it again now. And, oh, I should, of course, switch on the other lights. Otherwise, doesn't make sense. Okay, so again, now all the lights. And yes, okay, lucky me. You see, it's still here a little bit. So I have to take this black line a little bit more to the right, surprisingly. So, and new one. So still this little bit here, and it's gone. Huh? Okay, perfect. Good. This is dust on my sensor. I've seen this. You don't have to write any comments about this. I have to clean my camera. I'm aware of that. And yeah, that's it. Huh? Okay, so let me check now quickly the screen if we have any questions, because we are actually quite close from the light setup, which means if you have any questions, not yet, maybe not yet about short flash durations, but maybe about the setup for the light. Okay, there is one question. Is there a difference between the protecting glass of a Xerox lights and the Pulsar G? Yes, there is a difference. Also the question, of course, is about if you can use a Xerox for this. Yes, absolutely. The protecting glass of a Xerox is not perfectly round. It's more like rectangular. Okay, so the peripheric or the depth of the glass is not matte. It's actually clear, and only the front is matte. But in this situation, you can actually forget the light that goes that passes the transparent part of the protecting glass. The light we are using here is the light that leaves the protecting glass frontal, and this part of the protecting glass of a Xerox is matte as well. So there's no restriction in using Xerox lights for this kind of shots. We will talk about flash durations later on. I'm going to shoot it today with a 10,000th of a second. Xerox offers you 8,500 of a second. So that's very, very close. And I'm absolutely convinced, and I did it as well already before, this kind of shots are no problem. Right, for the moment, that's the only question I read, which means we can go on with the light. So far, the light is okay. It shapes the object. It separates the object from the background. But what the light is not doing yet is it's not freezing the object. Because I'm working here on a function that's called TO1 optimum. TO1, especially those that attended the last webinar a week ago, know exactly what this is. TO1 is the flash duration, and it includes all the light. And the optimum does not refer to the best duration. There is no best duration. Maybe on the camera, what is the best shutter speed? Is it 1 second? Is it 1,000th of a second? It depends. So we actually should be able to choose the exposure time, the shutter speed, or with flash the exposure time from the flash duration independently. But the optimum refers to the color. Okay, so it's the flash duration that guarantees the optimum color. But now the focus will be slightly different. I do care about the colors. Okay, but first priority is flash duration. So I tell the power pack, forget about the color first, give me the shortest possible flash duration. So I'm going to program now the power pack to a function called TO1 minimum. So I tell the pack to charge the capacitors fully, even when I work at reduced power, and then cut the flash very, very early. This will have an influence on the color. I will, first of all, show you on the picture how this looks like. And second, I will show you as well a diagram quickly what this means, or what's the technical explanation. Right, so I go into the menu and then I scroll down to the function TO1 optimum. Optimum was a 2,400 of a second, so actually still quite short, but now at this power setting, I have available is a 10,000th of a second. Okay, and now very important is the following step. That's why I switch now again to the screen sharing with my capturing software. I want you to have a close look at what's happening to the color of my photograph. So I let you see focus again. So that's the perfectly gray balanced photograph from before with all the neutral values. Let me get this here quickly. Yes, okay. Here in the center we have 240 almost. That's what I want. All the levels, all the three brightnesses from red, green, blue are almost on the same level. And now I'm going to shoot it again with TO1 minimum. And now it looks like this. Okay, so that's quite heavy, yeah. Okay, so what happens? This happens. Let me show this to you. So this happens. Okay, what we used so far with TO1 optimum was more the yellow flash. So rather low intensity and a rather long flash. And now what I did, as I said, I told the power pack to charge the capacitors to the maximum and to cut the flash super early. And because of this, we have more energy over a shorter time period. More energy means that we have a hotter flash tube, that the flash tube does not reach maybe 5,500 Kelvin, but maybe it reaches 6,800 Kelvin, and that's how we get the dominant blue shift. If you have seen a week ago that we can as well influence the color temperature directly on the power pack. For the power pack, it's exactly the same. So if you would like to have a slightly more bluish light, the pack does nothing else than shorten the flash duration. Okay, so they are going hand in hand. You cannot separate them. And now we are working with a higher voltage, with higher intensity light, but over a very short time. But I have to take care, of course, on the gray balance. So when you work on extremely short flash durations, when you work on TO1 minimum, before you make the final shot, you have to go for for a new gray balance. Okay, so we take this one away again, and I have to get my neutralizer here and tell him again, okay, that's my new gray, and now we are back in business. Now we have a 10,000 of a second, and we just told the camera that it should compensate the blue shift from the power pack. All right. Now, synchronization. Now it becomes tricky because I don't want to make this 10 times, because it gives a terrible mess. So I have to concentrate now as much as possible. The movement that's happening later on will be very fast. Okay, so I will have a second glass. I will throw the second glass on the first one, and then of course I would like to capture this. My finger is not fast enough for this, and as well, let's say this camera as well has a certain delay, and it's really 1/100th of a second earlier or 1/100th of a second later actually is a win or lost. Okay, so I don't want to take the responsibility to take the picture at the right moment. But this little tool here takes this responsibility. It's a sound trigger. This one is, let's say, self-made, but there are a lot of these sound triggers or infrared triggers or whatever laser triggers on the market. This one is just, let's say, homemade, and it works via the sync cable. So I put this on the table, and then sync goes here to the power pack. And now, important, synchronization goes away from the camera. Otherwise, I have a double exposure, and I don't want this. So, synchronization is now here. I switch it on, and of course, when I talk, it fires. But if something hits the table, it fires as well. All right, good. Let me switch it off. Okay. Now, what you have seen as well is that when I drop the pen or when I drop the pencil, it fired several times. I would have the same problem later on with the glass, because if the glass smashes, of course, first we get the impact and we get the right photograph, but then all the glass maybe falls off the table or falls on the table. So, and the power pack are recycling unbelievably fast. So I will have probably like 10 exposure in one. I will never get a clear shot. So I have to tell the pack in a way, fire only once, fire only when you hear the first trigger signal. And how do I do this? I work with sequence. I tell the pack, please fire twice, but then thanks to the interval, I can tell it, but the second flash comes only after 5 seconds. So this means that after the first impact, it synchronizes, and then it takes 5 seconds. It's ignoring all the other synchro signals from my trigger, and then after 5 seconds, it will fire again. But I don't care about this because my exposure time or my shutter speed on the camera will be 2 seconds. Okay, so sequence, 2 flashes, interval, 5 seconds, and like this, we should be safe. So you see it over there. Again, let me see what happens when I don't do this. Okay, like 3, 4, 5 flashes. Then I go here, sequence 2. Again, you will get the readings later on. So sequence 2 and the interval of 5 seconds. All right, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Okay, and now I can do this test again. 1 flash only, and then after 5 seconds, the other one. Okay, so that's what I need. Okay, I was talking too loud now. Now after 5 seconds, I have another flash. Good. That's what I need. Very well. Okay, so what else can go wrong? Sequence 2, tier 1 minimum, interval, I think that's pretty much it. Oh no, very good. This trigger here is super, super fast. Okay, as soon as it hears the impact, bang, we get the flash. Okay, but when the 2 glasses, let me switch it off. When the 2 glasses smash, of course, there's not a lot happened yet. Okay, so I just might have a little crack up there, but nothing really happened. So I would like to wait a little bit until the 2 glasses really get into each other and really smash each other quite nicely. And that's why I use a delay. So I tell the pack additionally, not only please only fire once, but as well, I tell it, please wait a little bit. And I'm going to tell it, please wait 2/100 of a second. So I'm going to delay it by 0.02 seconds. Okay, 2/100 of a second, delay. Delay 0.02. Okay, this is not something you see. If I drop the pencil, you won't see it, but for the camera, it's a big difference. For us, it's instant, not for the camera. All right, good. So, let me just have a quick look at, I see there are some questions coming in. Okay, what are the differences between Scoro and Zeros in flash duration /HS? Also, the first question is an easy answer. Scoro 10,000 of a second, shortest flash duration. Zeros 8,500 of a second, shortest flash duration. So it's just a few percentage more. So, but actually, no problem to do such shot with Zeros. HS, we are working in the studio. So HS is banned in the studio. Okay, it doesn't make sense to use HS in the studio. This is something that a lot of photographers still mix up. HS is, or a high-speed synchronization, is used when I want to work with open aperture and extremely short shutter speed on the camera. Let's say I go outside, sunny day, I would like to work with a limited depth of field. I would like to open to, I don't know, 2.8, and in order to not overexpose the sunlight, I have to close or to work with a shutter speed of maybe 4,000 or 8,000 of a second. In this situation, I need HS. HS is not making the flash shorter. HS is making the flash longer. Okay. Why? If we work with a short shutter speed on a DSLR camera, we are not exposing, bam, the photograph. We are actually scanning the photograph. We have a first curtain, zik, opening, and then we have a second curtain, zik, closing. If you're working with short exposure times, we do not open the first curtain completely. We open the first curtain a little bit, and then zzz, the second curtain follows. So we are actually more like scanning the photograph. So we have to work with something like, I call it continuous flash, because if you are scanning, you're not working with flashlights. So we are extending the flash duration that we can have a more or less even exposure time, even flash exposure during a long exposure time. Because it's 8,000 or this 4,000 of a second that you choose on the camera, this is the time that one pixel is exposed. But the time from the first pixel to the last pixel still takes much longer than 4,000 or 8,000 of a second. It still takes about a 250th of a second. So we have to extend the flash duration that the light remains constant during the entire scan of our chip, plus minus 250 or 200ths of a second. But again, HS has nothing lost in the studio. To do this with HS would be very counterproductive because HS absorbs or destroys a lot of power. It would not expose the entire photograph at the same time. And yes, and with the flash duration, with a short flash duration, I have more power available for the photograph. So that's why I can close down to 22. All right. So in the studio, we are freezing fast-moving objects with short flash durations. If we go outside and if we have to work with open aperture, or if we want to work with open aperture, we have to work with short exposure time, and then we use HS, but not in the studio. Last question before we actually make the shot. Is the light stand with the round bottom a cloak stand? I have no idea what a cloak stand is. It's a FOBA stand. And it has, I don't want to move these lights now, of course, and I don't have another one around. It's just the big advantage of these stands is that I can go very low, and they are like a micro boom, a mini boom stand. I rotated it a little bit for you. So like this, so I can have the light slide a little bit over the table, but it's a FOBA, I think they call it ground plate stand, and then with a combi tube, with the combi tube set. Very useful, especially for small lights. Like the big light over there, the big softbox there, I have a normal tripod because it's more stable, but something lightweight like this, absolutely fine to use this one. Do both Scoro and Zeros achieve the shortest flash duration at the same power setting? No, you have a little bit less power available on the Zeros. You see now here in this set, I'm shooting at 22. This is by far enough to have enough depth of field. Even when I shoot with medium format, by the way, I didn't talk about the camera, I'm shooting with medium format. Focal length is 80 millimeters. And let's say if you shoot this with DSLRs, it would be absolutely sharp and sufficient to shoot this at 11 or at 11.5. It would require, however, that you can turn off the lights in the studio completely. Now, that's what I cannot do today because I want you to see what I'm doing. So that's why I work with this crazy aperture of 22. I, of course, lose some of the total crispiness, sharpness, because I have the diffraction. But yeah, but I prefer that you see what's going on in the studio. Okay, but as I said, this shot with zeros, just possible as well. Okay, why the strip box has to be tilted up? Yes, it has to be tilted up that the lower part is more under the glass, that I get some reflections under the glass here, so that the light is almost coming from under the table. That's why it's kind of below the table. Okay, so it's I don't care about this part. This part is anyway probably reflecting here, but it's important that I can extend the reflections to at the lower part of the glass, and that's why I put some of the softbox kind of below the table. Right. Okay, so all the question disappears, which means it's the moment of truth right now. Going to fill a second glass. And of course, the big goal would be to make this only once, which means less cleaning afterwards. All right, let me check here the settings again. So, sequence of 2 makes sense, TO1 minimum makes sense, interval 5 seconds to avoid the second flash, delay 0.02 seconds. Okay, good. I think I'm ready. Let's switch off the lights in the studio and then make another test shot. So you will get a little bit of a grainy picture now. Of course, the modeling light has to go off as well. Okay, so I hope you can still see what's going on more or less. And now what I always do before I start smashing, I test the new synchronization, which means I'm going to throw the pen again into the set, and I do this twice now. First, I take the delay off again, switch this trigger on. I'm going to set the camera. The camera will be set to 2 seconds. Let me do this quickly. So I have 2 seconds to expose my photograph, right? And now to test synchronization, this one is on. I open the camera and then I drop the pen. So, all right, sharing screen. All right, good. So what you see now is that's what I said before. The pencil is, as soon as it touches here the table, immediately it's firing. But that's much too early. That's why I give it a delay of this 200th of a second. So I go again into the menu, program this delay of this 200th of a second, and do exactly the same shot again. And now we probably see the pencil bouncing back up. Exactly. This was before, and now that's a little later. Okay, and this is probably already enough that I can properly smash my glasses. It looks a little, I can even give it a little more, let's say 300th of a second. Last one. Yeah, okay, that's definitely, I should throw it the same way, of course, all the time. But I leave it at this 200th of a second delay. Okay, good. Because experience, I did this shot once before, or I don't know, 100 times before. All right. So, this means I'm kind of ready. I now make an exposure without flash, just to make sure that the rest of the photograph, that this remaining ambient light that I have in the studio, that this has no influence on my shot. So I expose 2 seconds. Nothing happens. And my picture looks like this. So it's not black, 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 because we have here, these are the last little bit of remaining lights that we have in the studio. Oh, that's why I said I should, of course, work in a completely black studio, but then you don't see anything. So these are the few fluorescent lights that I still have in the studio that you can see something. So we have to live with this. But it's absolutely dark enough. So let me shoot this live with you. What else can go wrong? I think that's it. I focused properly. Second glass. All right. So here we go. Okay. So as soon as I hear the shutter, the aperture to open, I smash the glasses. All right. Okay. Let's have a look what we got. First shot of the day. Okay, that's the one. Okay, not too bad. It's quite a big mess already, yeah. So of course I try another one. It's because it almost looks like one glass, but very important, before I do this another 10 times, it's very important that I check the technical aspects, but as well all these little very fast moving splitters here, they are super sharp. So I think from a technical point of view, there's nothing wrong about it. I could just now try to get a nicer picture, a nicer shape of all this. So that's why I'm going to do this one more time. I still have 9 minutes. During the same time, you can already start writing your final questions, because I will shoot this one more time and then we choose the better one of the two. All right. Of course, something like this you can do all morning long, because there's always one part of the picture that you would like to have somewhere else. But from a technical point of view, light shaping wise and flash duration wise, we are safe. So I shoot this again. I have two glasses here anyway that are waiting to be destroyed. Put the glass in the same position. That's the other advantage of having the glass all the way at the end of the table. I can reposition it at the same spot where it's properly focused. And I need more water. Once the second glass is here. All right. Good. So just to let you see, now I switched on the studio lights again. Just to let you see what happens if I expose now the 2 seconds. Okay, so that's what we would have below the flash exposure. We would have a lot of nonsense here on the acrylic plates, completely different color, and that's why it's important to shoot this with in a very dark studio, almost in a black studio, that the ambient light has no influence on due to the long shutter speed on the camera. So that's why I switched my studio lights off. And we are going back to the dark studio. I shoot this, as I said, one more time only. So synchronization on. Always test exposure, which means open camera, clapping, and now you can't see it, but I can see it. It looks good. Yeah. All right. Going for the last shot of the day. Just want to make sure that I'm not shooting during the interval. All right. Okay. Second shot, nice one. Okay, good. Completely different than the first one. I don't know what do you see? You don't see. All right, so that's the second one, huh? All right, good. So we have two pictures. We have the last one where actually the glasses surprisingly didn't even break yet. Okay, but there's a lot of mess, and with the same settings, we created this photograph. So this is really, it's the same, huh? Just with different. I guess here I was smashing them more aggressively, and here I gave it. I took back the power a little bit. But in both situations, we have a nice photograph here as well. All these very fast, super fast moving drops. Everything is perfectly sharp. These are like shock waves in the water, these as well. So I'm quite happy with these shots. From now on, it would just be experimenting with different throwing techniques, but nothing photographically interesting anymore. Right. So what I promised is I'm going to show you now the settings on my power pack, and then I will answer the final questions. And then this was it for the morning session. So going to do this, and then going to share this with you. Okay. So these are the settings. Power-wise, I'm working at relatively low power. So let's say the total power, the master is here on 5.8, so about 4 f-stops below max power. Distribution is not a lot of asymmetry. It's only 1 f-stop of asymmetry. This one is, let me check. This one is the 3.6 is the bare bulb. The 4.0 is the fill-in light. So the 4.0 is the 90 by 120 softbox coming from the back, and the 4.7 actually the brightest light. That's the strip light shaped softbox that's responsible for the reflection. Then sequence 2 in combination with the interval, so they go hand in hand. Sequence of 2, interval 5 seconds. This is the guarantee that the dropping glass is not firing a second or a third flash, that I have only one clean single exposure. Tier 1 minimum, we have seen this, it changed the color temperature, but it guaranteed me an absolute sharp photograph. Tier 1 minimum, and then the delay of 0.02, so only 200 of a second, that the two glasses have enough time to break properly to create a nice mess in front of my camera. Right. Okay, so we take this one away again. And okay, don't you get blurred picture because you touch the camera to trigger the photo? No, I can shake the camera as much as I want. The camera is on 2 seconds, but who cares? The exposure time comes from the flash. So the exposure time is not given by the camera. The exposure time is given from the flash. The camera opens 2 seconds, but only during 1/10,000th of a second, during this long shutter speed, bam, the picture happens. So exposure time is given by the flash duration, and the shutter speed of the camera is irrelevant. I don't care about this. Can you please run through the settings on the power pack? Yes, I think I just did this. Huh? Yes, you can control. Okay. Okay, what sound are you waiting for before shooting? I just, when I press, I hear the shutter to go open. Then I know, okay, now the camera is exposing. Then I have 2 seconds. That's the exposure time. No, that's the shutter speed on my camera. You see, I try to choose the word carefully. Shutter speed and exposure time are 2 different things. Shutter speed is in the camera. This is just long enough that it's 2 seconds, long enough for me to smash the glass. The exposure time is not the shutter speed. The exposure time is given by the flash. So I'm just waiting. I press carefully the camera, and as soon as I hear it opening, clack, then I know that I have 2 seconds to release the glass. Can we set combined both delay on the zeros via bronc control? Yes, you cannot set it directly on the zeros, but you can do it indirectly via bronc control. Okay, and yes, no, I don't get blurred pictures because I expose here from hand. All right, so if there are no more questions coming in, let me show you, just to make sure, let me show you this again. Okay, so these were the settings. Somebody asked this probably before I even showed it. So these are the settings of the Scoro. Summary. I think the most important thing is that we understand the difference between shutter speed and exposure time. Shutter speed is a camera thing, has no relevance now because I'm working with flash, and the exposure time is given by the flash itself. Make sure that if you do something like this and you need this kind of trigger, that the studio is as dark as possible. First, take care on the proper lighting without taking care on any technical aspects, such as flash duration, color temperature, and so on and so on. Make sure that first your light works as a still life, then short flash duration. Maybe you will have to readjust the power setting a little bit, that you can actually work with the shortest possible flash duration, which is 10,000 of a second here. And then in the end, get it done. But I think with a technical shot like this, we should not forget the standard beautiful lighting of the object itself, and the technical aspects to shoot this or to freeze this super fast movement is just a technical topping at the very end. Right. Is there an interval setting? Is the interval setting a delay between the lighting? No. The interval setting is I programmed a sequence of 2 flashes. Let me amplify my picture again by taking this one away. Okay, so they are all firing. The entire power pack, all the 3 lights attached are firing at the same moment. The interval is, I programmed a sequence of 2 flashes with the interval of 5 seconds, that the dropping glasses, the noise I'm making here, that I do not get multiple triggerings of the power pack, that I have multiple exposures of the glass. Okay, so I just tell the pack, please fire twice, but the second flash only after 5 seconds. That's when my camera is already closed again. Okay, so the second flash that I pre-program has nothing to do with the photograph. Otherwise, I would get yeah, you have seen it with the pencil when I threw it. Every time it touches the table, it gets another exposure. So that's the trick, how I can tell the Scoro to fire once only and nothing else during the interval time. But they're firing all at the same time. The delay is as well per pack. So I just tell the power pack, if you hear the trigger, don't fire yet. Wait 0.02 of a second and then expose the photograph. Okay, this is just the time until the 2 glasses actually meet. This is when it's triggering, and then I allow 0.02 of a second that the 2 glasses actually get into each other or bounce again away from each other, as we have seen in the second shot. Okay, why are you not using para for this session? Because there are other lights as well than para, and it would be, where do you want to use a para here? On the glass doesn't make sense. Reflections would not be nice. I cannot create such a small point like here with the bare bulb. I cannot create such a small spot with a para, because the smallest para is 88 centimeters, so it doesn't give me enough light control. And to backlight basically I could make the fill-in light here with a para, but why? No reason to use a para here. Okay, good. I think this question was answered as well. So I would like to thank you very much. If a question comes up again later on. Join me on Friday, 2 o'clock afternoon Swiss time for Q&A here from the broncolor studio. Give us now, when we finish the session, give us 30 seconds from your time, and we need some feedback from you about this webinar. Thank you very much for joining. See you again. Bye-bye.